The rhythmic ticking of the clock on the top floor of Sterling Enterprises signaled the start of another ruthless workday. The city's skyline stretched beyond the glass walls, bathed in the early morning glow. At exactly 8 a.m., Lena Carter set down a stack of reports on the CEO's desk, her movements quick and practiced. As Nathaniel Sterling's personal secretary, she had perfected the art of working under high pressure, zero margin for error conditions. Nathaniel Sterling was a man feared and revered in equal measure, calculating, untouchable, and absolutely incapable of human warmth. Employees at Sterling Enterprises spoke about him in hushed whispers, dreading the weight of his disapproval. But Lena? She wasn't afraid of him. 2 years in this job had proven one thing. Nathaniel Sterling was ruthless, but she was relentless. She had challenged his impossible demands, refused to cower under his scrutiny, and never hesitated to speak her mind. Maybe that was why she was still here, despite his reputation for discarding people as easily as bad stock options. She had, however, never expected what happened next. The heavy doors swung open with a commanding force. "Miss Carter?" Lena glanced up, unsurprised to see Nathaniel himself entering, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his posture exuding authority. With piercing steel blue eyes and a face carved from cold marble, he was the definition of unshakable. Wordlessly, she slid his morning espresso toward him. He took the seat behind his vast glass desk, but didn't reach for his coffee. Instead, he locked eyes with her and gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." That was new. Nathaniel never asked her to sit. If anything, their interactions were swift and impersonal. Instructions, reports, efficiency. This was something different. She hesitated for only a second before sitting. Leaning forward, he steepled his fingers, studying her. "You've worked for me for 2 years, correct?" Lena raised a brow. "Unless I've been hallucinating my paychecks, yes." A ghost of a smirk flickered, but vanished just as quickly. "You're good at your job," he continued, ignoring her sarcasm. "Reliable. Competent." She folded her arms. "I assume there's a but coming." Nathaniel's expression remained unreadable. "I need you to do something outside the scope of your usual duties." Lena frowned. "You're scaring me, Sterling." His gaze darkened with intent. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend. For 3 months. Silence. Lena blinked once, then twice. She had clearly misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" Nathaniel leaned back unbothered. "It's a simple arrangement. Public appearances, a few events, nothing more." She let out a short laugh. "Oh, of course, because fake dating your terrifying CEO is just another Tuesday." His expression remained unreadable. "You'll be compensated generously." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Define generously." He named a figure. Her heart stopped. That was more than her entire yearly salary. She exhaled, folding her arms. "All right, let's say I'm not totally against the idea. Hypothetically. Why me?" Nathaniel's gaze didn't waver. "Because you're the only one I trust not to develop expectations." Lena scoffed. "So I'm convenient then?" "Wow, you really know how to charm a woman." He didn't deny it. She sat back, watching him carefully. Nathaniel Sterling was always in control, always 3 steps ahead. If he needed a fake girlfriend, it meant something big was at stake, and she wanted to know what. Finally, she sighed. "All right, boss, you've got my attention. Start talking." Lena Carter had faced her fair share of difficult conversations in her career, but none compared to the sheer absurdity of this moment. Nathaniel Sterling, the most feared CEO in the corporate world, had just asked her to be his fake girlfriend. For 3 months. She let out a short laugh, crossing her arms as she leaned back in her chair. "You're joking, right?" Nathaniel's expression remained unreadable. "I never joke about business." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Except this isn't business." He exhaled, completely unbothered by her skepticism. "For me, everything is business." That was probably true. Still, Lena wasn't one to back down without answers. "Why would I agree to this?" she challenged. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, his piercing blue gaze never leaving hers. "Because it benefits us both." "Oh, really?" she scoffed. "And how exactly does pretending to be your girlfriend help me?" His response was immediate. "You need money." Lena stiffened. Nathaniel wasn't wrong. She was saving up to help her younger brother get into college. But hearing it so bluntly from him sent a wave of irritation through her. "I don't need handouts." "It's not a handout," he countered smoothly. "It's a transaction. You help me, I help you." And in return, I'll double your salary. Lena's breath hitched. That was a lot of money, more than she had ever seen at once. It could change everything for her and her brother. Still, she refused to give in too quickly. Why me? She asked, trying to regain control of the conversation. Nathaniel exhaled as if the answer was obvious. Because you're the only one I trust not to develop expectations. Lena let out an incredulous laugh. Wow, such a romantic. You know what I mean. His tone was calm, but his gaze was razor-sharp. She did. Nathaniel Sterling wasn't interested in love, relationships, or anything remotely sentimental. He needed someone who wouldn't get attached, and he had chosen her. Lena bit her lip, weighing the pros and cons. 3 months, a ridiculous paycheck, and all she had to do was pretend to tolerate him. Finally, she let out a long sigh. Fine, I'll do it. A satisfied smirk tugged at the corner of Nathaniel's lips. Good. Tomorrow night, we'll be attending a charity gala. Be ready. Lena frowned. Wait, so we're just jumping straight into this? No time to waste. He stood, already dismissing her. I'll send you the details. Don't be late. Something about this felt off, but Lena pushed the thought aside. This was just an arrangement, right? Lena stood before a full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The deep, emerald gown she wore hugged her curves perfectly, the silk fabric pooling elegantly at her feet. Delicate silver jewelry adorned her neck and wrists, catching the soft glow of the lights. She looked like she belonged. And that was the strangest part. Lena had never worn anything so luxurious. Never imagined stepping into a world where glamour and wealth were effortless accessories. But tonight, she had to play the role. A sharp knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. She took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and opened it. Nathaniel Sterling stood before her. Dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his usual intimidating aura somehow even more intense. The soft glow from the chandelier reflected off the crisp fabric, emphasizing the sharp cut of his jawline. For the first time ever, he looked at her. Really looked at her. And for a split second, his expression shifted. Something unreadable flickered in his gaze. Lena swallowed, trying to ignore the sudden, unexpected tension in the air. Nathaniel's lips parted slightly as if he wanted to say something. Then, just as quickly, his professional mask slipped back into place. Let's go. Without another word, he turned and walked away, expecting her to follow. Lena exhaled sharply, her heart pounding for reasons she didn't want to examine. This was just pretend, just an arrangement. So why did it feel like something far more dangerous? Lena Carter was used to attention. It came with being the personal assistant to one of the most powerful men in the country. But tonight, as she stepped into the grand ballroom on Nathaniel Sterling's arm, the attention felt different. Too intense. Too scrutinizing. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. People exchanged glances, their expressions shifting between shock, curiosity, and disbelief. No one had ever seen Nathaniel attend an event with a woman. And yet, here she was. Lena forced herself to stay composed, repeating the instructions Nathaniel had given her earlier. Just play the role of my girlfriend. Look confident, and above all, don't let anyone see through the act. Easy enough. But that resolve shattered the moment she felt it, Nathaniel's hand tightening around hers. It wasn't a gentle hold. It was possessive, firm, a silent message. Lena barely had time to react before she noticed where he was looking. Across the ballroom, a woman stood frozen, her emerald green eyes locked onto Nathaniel. She was stunning, the kind of beauty that turned heads effortlessly. Golden blonde hair was styled in an elegant updo, and a white satin gown clung to her figure like it was made for her. But it wasn't her beauty that caught Lena's attention. It was the expression on her face, a mix of shock and pain. Lena didn't know who she was, but something told her. This woman wasn't just another socialite, she was someone important to Nathaniel. Lena turned to Nathaniel, nudging him lightly. Who is she? She whispered. Nathaniel's jaw tensed. For the first time since they arrived, his calm mask slipped. His usual confidence was replaced with something else, something far more complicated. But before he could answer, the woman stepped forward. Nathaniel, she greeted, her voice smooth but laced with something almost bitter. Nathaniel stiffened. Eleanor. Lena's stomach twisted. So they knew each other. Eleanor's lips curved into a small, unreadable smile. It's been a long time. Not long enough. The coldness in Nathaniel's tone sent a chill down Lena's spine. The ballroom fell into silence around them. Eleanor's gaze shifted to Lena, assessing her slowly. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" she asked, her smile never reaching her eyes. Nathaniel didn't hesitate. "This is Lena, my girlfriend." Lena felt her heart skip a beat. She had practiced this role in her head, reminded herself 1,000 times that it was all pretend. But something about the way he said it just now, something about the way Eleanor looked at her, it felt real. Eleanor let out a soft laugh, though it lacked warmth. "Really?" she mused, her emerald gaze flickering between them. "I never thought you'd move on so easily." Nathaniel's grip on Lena's hand tightened. His voice was clipped when he replied, "It ended a long time ago, Eleanor. You should move on too." A long pause. Then Eleanor smiled, but there was sadness in it. "Is that so?" she murmured. "Funny. I always thought—" She trailed off, shaking her head. Finally, she looked at Lena. "Congratulations." And just like that, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a suffocating silence. Lena slowly pulled her hand away from Nathaniel's grip. She turned to him, her voice steady but firm. "Who is she?" Nathaniel clenched his jaw, exhaling slowly. And for the first time, Lena saw something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Regret, pain, and a past he wasn't ready to talk about. But Lena had a feeling. She was about to find out. Lena Carter wasn't sure what she had walked into. From the moment Eleanor had entered Nathaniel's office, the air had shifted. The warmth of the afternoon had vanished, replaced by a biting chill. Nathaniel sat behind his massive glass desk, his fingers tapping against the polished surface. His expression was unreadable, but Lena wasn't fooled. This wasn't just any woman. This was someone who knew him well enough to get under his skin. Eleanor stood in the doorway, her emerald eyes sharp. There was no trace of the vulnerability she had displayed at the gala. Now she looked like a woman with a purpose. "Do you really expect me to believe that you love her?" Lena's breath hitched. She hadn't expected that. Nathaniel's gaze remained steady, his face as cold as marble. He said nothing, but his silence was just as damning. Eleanor stepped further into the office, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "I know you, Nathaniel," she continued, her voice like a blade. "You don't love. You don't believe in love. And now suddenly you have a girlfriend? A secretary, no less?" Lena's fists clenched at her sides. She wasn't ashamed of being an assistant, but the way Eleanor said it, as if she was beneath him, made her blood boil. Nathaniel finally stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "And if it were an act," he mused, his voice dangerously calm, "do you really think I'd let you figure it out so easily?" Eleanor faltered. For the first time since she entered the office, her confidence wavered. But then, just as quickly, she recovered. A smirk tugged at the corners of her lips, and she turned to Lena. "Fine," she said. "Prove it." Lena blinked. "What?" Eleanor crossed her arms. "If you two are really in love, then kiss in front of me." The room fell into silence. Lena's heart pounded. Her gaze snapped to Nathaniel, but he wasn't looking at Eleanor. He was looking at her, measuring, calculating. And then, without a word, he stepped closer. Too close. Lena barely had time to react before she felt his hand slide around her waist. His touch was warm, too warm. And then, just as suddenly, his lips were on hers. A collective gasp echoed through the office. Lena's mind shut down. Nathaniel's lips were soft but demanding. The kiss wasn't rushed, nor hesitant. It was a statement, a silent challenge to Eleanor. But the real problem? Lena's heart was racing. Because for a moment, just a moment, she forgot. Forgot that this was just an act. Forgot that Nathaniel Sterling was not hers. Forgot that Eleanor was still there, watching. Nathaniel pulled away first, but his hand lingered on her lower back. His gray eyes searched hers, not for show, not for Eleanor, for something else, something real. Eleanor's face darkened. She looked between them, her jaw tightening, before she let out a soft, bitter laugh. "So it's true," she murmured, shaking her head. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, but Lena barely noticed. Her mind was still spinning. Nathaniel slowly stepped back, releasing her. But before she could gather her thoughts, his voice cut through the thick tension. "You're thinking too much," he said quietly. Lena's head snapped up. "Excuse me?" He smirked slightly. "Don't overanalyze it." Oh, so that's how he wanted to play it. Lena forced a laugh, stepping away from him. "Trust me, Nathaniel, that kiss meant nothing." Nathaniel's smirk didn't falter. But his eyes told a different story. And Lena knew this was far from over. Lena Carter had made up her mind. She couldn't keep pretending. She'd been able to lie to herself at first, telling herself this was just a job, just an act. But now the lines were too blurred. Nathaniel had changed. He wasn't just the cold, calculated CEO anymore. He wasn't just a man trying to outmaneuver his past. Somewhere between the stolen glances, the whispered conversations, and the kisses that felt too real, something had shifted. And she wasn't sure she could handle it anymore. The night of the Sterling Corporation gala was a grand spectacle. Crystal chandeliers bathed the ballroom in golden light, guests dressed in the finest couture exchanged pleasantries, and business deals were made with a single handshake. Lena was there, playing her role as Nathaniel's girlfriend. But tonight was different. She couldn't keep up the act anymore. After completing her obligatory rounds, smiling at investors, standing by Nathaniel's side as he made polite conversation, she pulled him away from the crowd. "Come with me," she whispered. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow but followed. She led him to the rooftop terrace, where the city lights stretched far into the horizon, twinkling like distant stars. The cool night air brushed against her skin, but it wasn't the wind making her shiver. She took a deep breath and turned to face him. "This charade, it has to end." Nathaniel's expression hardened. "What do you mean?" Lena clenched her fists. "I can't keep pretending," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. Nathaniel took a step forward, his gaze darkening. "Lena, no. Let me finish." She swallowed. "I've fallen in love with you." Nathaniel froze. She forced a sad smile. "And I don't know if anything you've done was ever real, so if this is still just a game to you, then I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore." The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Lena felt her chest tighten. He isn't saying anything. That was all the answer she needed. She turned to leave. But before she could take a step, a strong hand wrapped around her wrist. "Wait." Lena froze. Nathaniel's grip was firm, almost desperate. "I never thought of this as a game," he murmured. She hesitated, but didn't turn around. "Then why?" He let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Because I didn't plan for this." Finally, she faced him. Nathaniel clenched his fists, struggling for words, his usually sharp confidence shaken. "I planned everything," he admitted, his voice low. "The fake relationship, the contract, the deadlines. It was all supposed to be temporary." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "But there was one thing I didn't plan for." His stormy gray eyes locked onto hers. "I didn't plan to fall in love with you." Lena's breath hitched. He took a step closer, his voice raw. "You think you're the only one who's confused?" A small, humorless smile crossed his lips. "I told myself it was just business, that I was doing what I had to do to protect my company. But the truth?" He cupped her cheek gently, his touch sending shivers down her spine. "The truth is, I've been in love with you for a long time." Lena's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she just stared at him, her world spinning. She didn't know who moved first. But the next thing she knew, their lips met. This kiss wasn't like the others. It wasn't for show. It wasn't to prove a point. It was real. Nathaniel's arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as if he was afraid to let go. And for the first time, Lena let herself believe. Believe that maybe, just maybe, this was never just an act. A soft breeze carried the scent of roses through the Sterling estate gardens. Lena took a deep breath, her white gown flowing as she walked down the aisle. Her heart pounded faster with each step. And at the end of the aisle, waiting for her, was Nathaniel. For once, there was no coldness in his expression, no distance, no walls, just a man who had finally learned how to love. The moment their eyes met, he smiled, a real, genuine smile, and Lena knew. She had found home. 1 year later, Lena stood in their kitchen, holding an envelope in her hands. Nathaniel walked in, raising an eyebrow. "What's this?" she smiled. A little surprise. He opened the envelope, pulling out a small note. His sharp eyes scanned the words. "Congratulations, you've been promoted to Daddy?" Silence. Then he looked up at her, stunned. "Wait, are you serious?" Lena nodded, biting her lip. For the first time ever, Nathaniel Sterling was speechless. Then, without warning, he scooped her into his arms, spinning her around. "I can't believe it," he murmured against her hair, his voice filled with wonder. Lena laughed, tears of joy welling in her eyes. "Believe it? Nathaniel gently placed a hand on her stomach, his gaze softening. Looks like our life is about to get even crazier. She smiled, resting her forehead against his. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Because love wasn't just a contract. Love was coming home. And Nathaniel Sterling was finally home. The Sterling estate gardens were bathed in the golden glow of the afternoon sun. White roses lined the pathway, and fairy lights twinkled among the towering oak trees. It was a wedding straight out of a fairy tale. Yet to Lena Carter, the most magical thing wasn't the decor or the grandeur. It was him. Nathaniel stood at the end of the aisle, dressed in an elegant black tuxedo, his smoky gray eyes locked onto hers. There was no trace of the cold, calculating CEO he had once been, only a man who had learned to love. And he was waiting for her. Lena took a deep breath and stepped forward, her heart pounding. Every step brought her closer to the life she never dared to dream of. And when she finally reached him, Nathaniel took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I never believed in fate," he murmured, his voice only for her, "until you walked into my office and ruined my perfectly organized world." Lena chuckled softly. "And yet you still decided to marry me. Best decision I ever made." Their vows were filled with love, promises, and, of course, Lena's signature humor. "I promise to always keep an allergy pill in my bag," she teased, "in case you order shrimp again." Nathaniel smirked. "And I promise to love you even when you reorganize my files without my permission." Laughter rippled through the guests, but as they exchanged rings and said the long-awaited "I do," the world seemed to stand still. And when he kissed her, slow, deep, and utterly real, Lena knew one thing for certain: she had finally found home. The scent of coffee filled their penthouse as Lena absent-mindedly tapped her fingers on the kitchen counter, staring at the pregnancy test in her hand. She had checked 3 times. The result hadn't changed. She was pregnant. Her heart raced. How was she supposed to tell Nathaniel Sterling, a man who built his entire life around control, precision, and calculated decisions, that their world was about to turn upside down? She heard the front door open. "Lena?" Taking a deep breath, she grabbed an envelope and walked into the living room, trying to steady her nerves. Nathaniel raised an eyebrow as she handed it to him. "What's this?" A little surprise, he opened the envelope and pulled out a small note. His sharp eyes scanned the words, "Congratulations, you've been promoted to Daddy." For the first time in his life, Nathaniel Sterling was speechless. He blinked, then blinked again. "Wait, are you serious?" Lena nodded, biting her lip. Without warning, Nathaniel scooped her into his arms, spinning her around. "I can't believe it," he murmured against her hair, his voice filled with wonder. Lena laughed, tears of joy welling in her eyes. "Believe it." Nathaniel gently placed a hand on her stomach, his expression softening in a way she had never seen before. "Looks like our life is about to get even crazier," he said with a rare, genuine smile. Lena leaned into him, her voice full of warmth. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." A little girl with dark curls and piercing gray eyes ran across the Sterling estate gardens, laughing as she chased a golden retriever. Nathaniel stood beside Lena, his arm wrapped around her waist as they watched their daughter, Emma Sterling, play without a care in the world. "She's fast," Lena observed, sipping her coffee. Nathaniel smirked. "She gets that from me." Lena scoffed. "Oh please, if anything, she inherited your impossible stubbornness." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "And I suppose she got her chaos from you?" Lena grinned. "Obviously." Nathaniel exhaled dramatically. "Then I have no choice but to accept my fate." Lena laughed, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You know you wouldn't have it any other way." He sighed, pulling her closer. "No, I wouldn't." They stood there, watching their daughter, watching the life they had built together. Once upon a time, Nathaniel Sterling thought he had everything. Power, success, control. He had no idea he was missing something, until a reckless, headstrong secretary crashed into his world and changed everything. Forever. As the sun set over the city skyline, Nathaniel turned to Lena, a thoughtful look in his eyes. "So, how do you feel about another one?" Lena nearly choked on her coffee. "Another what?" He smirked. "A sibling for Emma." Lena's eyes widened. "Nathaniel Sterling, are you telling me you want another baby?" He shrugged, slipping his hands into his pockets. "I mean, we already have chaos. Why not double it?" Lena gaped at him. Then suddenly, she laughed. And Nathaniel laughed with her. Their story had started with a contract, a fake relationship, a lie. But what they had built, that was real, and it was just the beginning. From the very first chapter to this heartfelt ending, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Your support, your comments, and your love for these stories mean the world to us. Every like, share, and subscription inspires us to create more unforgettable tales of love, passion, and destiny. We hope this story touched your heart, made you smile, and reminded you that love can find us in the most unexpected ways. But this is not the end. It's just the beginning. Tell us your favorite moment in the comments below. Would you love to see a bonus chapter or a new story? Let us know. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on more beautiful, emotional, and inspiring love stories. Until next time, keep believing in love.